Okay, good morning. Thanks for joining us. My name is MK Palmore. I am part of the leadership team for the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of ICMCP. We're happy that you were able to join us today. We are closing out a pretty challenging year, 2020, but we feel like there was at least a little bit, quite a bit to celebrate in the way of the accomplishments that we've been able to achieve this year. The emphasis that's now being placed on this very important topic of increasing the presence of women and minorities in the field of cybersecurity, and just a general sense that we needed to get together with our community, our allies, and folks who have participated throughout this year in making sure that organizations like ICMCP continue to receive the kind of support that they deserve. We got a great webinar scheduled for you guys this morning. Some fascinating talks, really great guests, all of whom, at least in my experience here in the information security industry, are luminaries in the industry or up and coming folks who I think that you probably should be paying attention to. We're going to kick things off here in one moment with some comments from my colleague, Rolanda Small. We'll go into the keynote. We'll have a couple of fantastic panel discussions for you guys. We'll take a quick short break, bio break, so that folks can break away, refresh coffee, do what they need to do. And then we're going to have an amazing keynote from an up and coming entrepreneur and CEO who I was excited to meet and get an opportunity to talk to, and immediately asked him to come and speak to our ICMCP membership. And then we'll have some closing comments. We've scheduled a tight and compact 2-hour schedule for you guys, always concentrating on and trying to deliver content that's worthy of your time. We realize that everyone's busy and there's a ton going on. When I stood up at Palo Alto Networks this time last year and launched the ICMCP San Francisco Bay Area chapter, I knew that I was taking on a huge endeavor. But immediately, and when I say immediately, I mean literally at that meeting, in putting it together, Rolanda Small had helped me coordinate the meeting. I immediately got solicitation for folks who wanted to help this cause, who wanted to get involved, and assembling this leadership team that you see before you. We really took off, got ourselves together, understood what our mission set was, and I can't thank these individuals enough, Rolanda, Hakeem, Olivia, for really stepping up, answering the mail on this important issue, and using all of us, our personal time. We all do this outside of our jobs to make sure that we are contributing to and making sure that we're providing opportunities for folks to gain access to this industry. One of the big accomplishments during the year was a alignment, a collaboration that we've initiated with the SANS organization to provide cybersecurity training to women and underrepresented minorities from California or resident to California, changing lives one individual at a time, really an opportunity to provide the skills necessary to get folks into these jobs and provide them the technical skills necessary in order to enter the field and subsequently thrive. You're going to be hearing a little bit about the scholarship opportunity throughout. We'll be putting links in the chat that will allow access to it. Please pass on the word of this. We are at about 150 applicants for this and growing. We'd like to get as many as 500 folks into the pipeline. We got some great current sponsorships from companies like the one that Rolanda and I work for at Palo Alto Networks. And we have some significant entities that are on the table proposed, thinking about contributing to this in terms of sponsorships, and we're pretty sure we're going to be able to bring them across the finish line. I put this sponsorship slide up because this gives you some idea of the depth of companies and the types of companies that understand that this is an absolutely important, imperative issue, and they're willing to put their money where their mouths are to contribute to it. I want to quickly say we are developing our presence online, social media. We've been doing a little bit of an ad campaign in the past few months. You can find us in all of these various venues, specifically our chapter. We've got a page on Facebook. We've got an Instagram page. We've got a Twitter account. We're going to put the links to those pages in the chat as we go along as well. Pass on the word, follow us, look for indications of some of the events that we have coming up. Again, we're pretty proud of the content that we've been able to put together, and we will continue to do that for all of you guys. One final comment before I turn it over to Rolanda. Again, it's been an extremely difficult year for many. But I will tell you that some of the highlights, again, have been the collaboration that I've seen in the IND space from individuals like the leadership team you see here for this Bay Area chapter, and others out there, the allies that I've come across, and folks who are really geared up and motivated about this topic. And I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to 2021, because it's a new and refreshing opportunity, but also an opportunity for us to really take this issue to the next level and get folks engaged in this industry. So right now, I'm going to turn it over to Rolanda Small. I call her my partner in crime, so to speak. Been with me right there from the beginning on kicking this thing off, and appreciate all of her efforts in this. Thanks, Rolanda.
Absolutely, MK. I want to first extend another thank you to everyone who's here to attend today to support ICMCP Bay Area chapter, as well as just understanding the mission that we're on to be able to change the landscape for cybersecurity. This is so incredibly critical for us at this point in time. So I'd like you to just ask you to take this time and give yourself this gift to, turn off everything else, turn off your phones, turn off your other chat windows, and just take this time to be with us, because we have an incredible lineup for you. And we're getting ready to really dig into some wonderful chats that we're going to share with you. So please take this time, be present, and give this gift to yourself and others around you. And welcome to our annual summit for the ICMCP Bay Area chapter. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off with our first keynote. She's incredible. I just want to give you a tad little intro, because she's got so much to share with you, and I don't want to steal her thunder. She is amazing. So first, I'm going to introduce to you Deidre Diamond, CEO of Cyber SN. I tell you, she's a talent and technology veteran, CEO. She secures diversity and has created the largest cybersecurity talent acquisition service and technology firm in the US. He's focusing on cybersecurity, the talent shortage that we're facing, which everyone knows, and how that is something that we can fix if we focus on women and underrepresented minorities. Her mission is to remove the pain from the job searching and matching for everyone. That is something that she holds near and dear to her heart. She cares tremendously about people and loving where they work, and has been working to create cultures that have high EQ, that emotional intelligence, and those skills that are needed to ensure that we focus on words and behaviors. Deidre is known in the D&I community as someone who works hard to make sure that words and behaviors are inclusive, so that everyone's environment that they're performing in and that they're working in is diverse and feels really welcoming and belonging to everyone. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our keynote, Deidre Diamond.
Thank you, Rolanda. That's a special, sweet intro. I'm very excited to be with you all here today. I've been a part of ICMCP for almost 5 years, and watching this organization, this very special organization, grow has been wonderful. And to partner on a regular basis is also wonderful. We need everybody together. And so MK, great job starting a chapter in San Francisco, my home state of California. I'm so happy to be here with you all today. I've got some wisdom I'm going to drop on you all. So let me share my screen and let's get going. And let's get in presentation mode and talk about hacking our EQ, emotional intelligence. As Rolanda mentioned, it's a definite hot button of mine. And the reason being is that I know it's the reason why I am the 1% of founding CEOs in tech, is that not only did I have some basic EQ skills, but the folks that I walked into working for right out of college valued EQ, trained EQ, and trained tech. And so I really want to say to everybody here, the world is your oyster. And I know it doesn't feel like it necessarily sometimes when job searching is such a broken mess. And I know a lot of people here are just coming into cyber and find it difficult to get interviews or get the right interviews. And I'm going to talk about that just a little bit here in a minute. And then I'm going to really jump into EQ because, we've got 20 minutes. All right, so I think it's important to understand my background, to understand where my wisdom comes from. These companies on the right-hand side that I spent 21 years in are all owned by the same two serial entrepreneurs, and they hired me out of college. They had a very special story that they sold, which was you train and you promote from within. Nobody comes to work to fail. If you're going to manage people, care for them or don't manage people. And so I'm lucky. And unfortunately, it takes a lot of luck for us minorities to really get into positions of power. And I want to see that change, which is why I'm out doing what I'm doing. And I'm super thankful for these men. So got into recruiting in '94, inside sales model, brought that model to Rapid7 Sales and was their first VP of sales. And then percussion was content management, and certainly interesting, not what I loved. I'm a social criminal justice major. And so the cyber community really worked for me. And so having left staffing for 10 years into software, I decided, you know what? I noticed that the cyberspace is really struggling with finding jobs, matching each other. And let me go see if I can solve that. And boy, did I find a lot of things I didn't expect after leaving staffing for 10 years in the technical revolution. And that is really what's happening with your job searching challenges out there, everybody, is that a couple of things. I'm going to share that and then we're going to jump into EQ. But before I go, securediversity.org, before I go into that, securediversity.org is also out doing very similar things to ICMCP. So please do check us out. We're all partners and working together to bring women and minorities into cyber. Our main focus is to make sure that people understand the vastness of the jobs. This is a resource you can find at cybersn.com. It's currently 35 job categories. When we first started, it was 22. We're releasing 45. And so what you'll find when you go to the live asset, if you click on any one of these functional roles, if you will, you'll see the titles associated with them. So, job searching's broken. Right? Like, how do you make matches, resumes, SEO? It's a yucky system. And on top of that, a security engineer could be, as you see here in this, many different profiles. And now with the advancement over the last year of security, we're seeing like IAM positions become their own functional role. SecOps is its own functional role. Threat hunting, own functional role. So what I want to make sure that I at least said to you all, considering I'm super indulged into the definitions of cybersecurity jobs, roles, responsibilities, categorizing, taxonomy, very closely aligned with NICE and NIST, and really working with other organizations to get a common language to help us all. So just know that there's lots of different roles, and the world is your oyster. And even though job searching's a bit broken, don't let it discourage you. Keep talking to people. You'll find something that you really like. Just have some education on what the possibilities are so you can focus where you're job searching. So on that note, let's dive in. EQ, emotional intelligence. I have a feeling that this term works a lot better than soft skills or sales skills or what have you, but truly emotional intelligence is a skill, and it's traditionally been taught to sales folks or business folks. I'll tell you an interesting story. In '94, when I started in technical staffing, one of the questions that I was instructed to ask any employer was, does this person interact with any other humans? Because 90% of the time, the answer was no. The answer was no. So if the answer was yes, we needed to know because we needed to put somebody in front of them that had really good communication skills and emotional intelligence skills, which meant they were working in teams and working with other people and explaining things and handling, escalated issues. And so, wow, fast forward, and who would even think about asking that question? Well, I can tell you that our fax machine also had rolled paper back then, so it was a while ago. But my point is that emotional intelligence is now critical. it's not even an option for our success. We are servants of each other in business and in life. We are so intertwined now by technology that we must work in teams. We must resolve conflict quickly. We must bring joy to work. And I know it's possible. I know that lots of money can be made when joy and love are around. It's not to say that it's one or the other. So I challenge everybody to really think about, and I'm going to get into the skills of emotional intelligence. And one more thing to add here is, you know, our IQ actually caps out when the brain fully develops. It's somewhere between 23 and 25. It's different for all of us. But when the brain fully develops, our IQ is whatever our IQ is at that moment. The wonderful thing about EQ, which is really caring about how others think, feel, and perceive, and altering our behaviors to get the best reaction, the most positive reaction out of others, that skill set actually doesn't cap out. It's been proven that it continues to grow and evolve. And so, you know, there is no end game to what I'm sharing with you. It's a consciousness for sure. And then it's, you know, owning the skills that really help you stay conscious. Our brains are designed to not be in conscious mode the majority of the time. And so, you know, to have strong EQ, we must train our brain to be more conscious, which is more aware in the now, paying attention, listening, and feeling. The great news about what I'm talking about is that the stock market, the financial institutes, regulations and regulatory compliance is now looking at EQ, emotional intelligence impact. This study that I have on the screen here from Google and Harvard really speaks to the fact that we know that people who come with higher EQ produce stronger producing teams, happier producing teams. That translates in revenue, but it also translates in statistics of retention and happiness levels. And so luckily for us all, because now money is behind people wanting these skills, we're seeing more training, we're seeing more accountability, we're seeing executives have compensation tied to these types of statistics of retention and certainly diversity. And I say it's, you know, lucky us, because, you know, I've never seen anything really become important until money's behind it. That's the truth, or fines or compliance or what have you. And being in this business since 2007, I watched, you know, security not really be a topic of that companies cared about until PCI started fining. So, you know, we can see long histories of where we need laws and regulations to help us. But here's the silver lining, is that this is one that's going to help society if we can come to work with more empathy, with more care for equality and generosity. Wow, imagine what life could be like and will be like, because you're you know, your newer generations and all of us here, we're planning on continuing to make the change, and we're really counting on you all to bring this type of change too. So let's get into further, like, why is this important? Look at these statistics. These statistics, while some of them seem old, I haven't updated them because they're not getting better. They're staying the same, and I should update them a little bit, but these are the stats. They're not, it's not changing. My database doesn't say any differently than what these statistics say either. And I'm in the job business of security, deep in it. And so these statistics just prove that we must own emotional intelligence. I mean, can you imagine 62%? Think about how much time, you know, you've spent looking for a job. Those of us that have been hiring in our careers, how much time we've spent hiring folks and training and onboarding and what have you, and then only to find that they left because they didn't feel respected. Seems to be one of the easiest things we could do, is have behaviors that are respectful, and yet it's not. And so for me, this has to change. It's not acceptable. It's not what I walked into out of college. And I know for a fact, had I not walked into an environment that was the opposite of these statistics, I wouldn't be sitting here, because as a minority, as somebody who is, different than most in the room a lot of the times of tech business, how am I going to be successful in an environment that's disrespectful? As also a minority, it's going to be worse. It's just going to be worse. And so my point is that if the majority of the people in the industry are not having a good time hanging together, because 62% is definitely the majority, well, then how are minorities going to plug into that? So I tell people all the time, if you want diversity, you must put inclusion first. Inclusion comes before diversity. Do you have an inclusion culture for yourselves, for just the people that are there that aren't, let's say, deemed minorities? How are your retention statistics? How are what's the happiness levels? Because you got to own that before you can actually then have diversity. And so while many of us are out there making sure that underserved people in general have access to cyber jobs, my concern still remains, because we will solve that disparage gap of being able to get to education, being able to get to resources. We will solve that. I'm certainly committed, and I know everybody here is, and lots of people are. And yet, what happens when you arrive? So, I say to everybody out there already in the business, you must help us own behaviors and how behaviors impact others. And those of you coming in, same thing. You're going to have to impact behavior. So let's and we need you to have strong EQ. And also, don't work for people that don't have good EQ and then don't treat you right. The world is your oyster, I promise you. It takes a little bit of time to find. You will find. So let's break this down a little bit more. There's a great book out there. It's super quick read, Emotional Intelligence. There's 1.0, 2.0. This is a slide from them. I recommend reading it. But really the easiest way to think is that you have your personal emotional intelligence competence and you have your social competence of emotional intelligence. And truly, one is about being self-aware. And it isn't about being self-aware so that you can, criticize yourself. It's being self-aware so that you can grow. This is, as I said, no end game, and you grow through experience. So you can't possibly have perfection without time, right? Wisdom requires time. So be kind to yourself, and also be self-aware. I don't believe that we shouldn't care how people think of us. I think that if we're kind, generous people and people want to be mean to us, we shall not let it stop us. And yet it is not true that we shouldn't care. We should. And part of that is then self-managing. What's working in your self-awareness when you think about how you interact with yourself? What's working for you? How are you feeling? Your health? It's all within your self-awareness. And what can you do to self-manage that? As somebody who had poor health up until about 28, 29 years old, where my health made me look at my health. I wasn't self-aware enough. And luckily my body told me, our bodies do talk, and I was able to write correct. So really listening to ourselves. So hopefully before, the body tells us because we're feeling ill, but also self-awareness to our brain. And what kind of messages are we sending to ourselves? And what kind of, are you applying positive reinforcements to yourself? Please do. It is super helpful. Positive affirmation, meditation, breathing exercises, yoga, being active. This all helps your own personal competence, because our minds and our bodies are super connected. And what we put in our bodies, how we care for our bodies, impacts our brains. So I really encourage you to look at self-awareness as, sort of your temple of how you can actually have social confidence. How can you go out there and give to others? How can you show up and perform in a high-paced society? It's all going to come down to how you care for yourself, how you self-care. And then, social confidence is how you interact. What's your social awareness like? What's happening in the room? How are others thinking, feeling, and perceiving? Why would they think, feel, and perceive that versus judging that as good or bad? The concept of having a 360-degree view means really think about others in a way that has a lack of judgment and more of trying to be curious and understanding of where they're coming from. Because it is very true that if we don't do that, which is our conscious mind, that really requires us to use our conscious mind. If we don't do that, then we can fall into our own unconscious biases. And so, really it's the ability to be socially aware without judgment, and yet certainly eventually having an opinion to whatever's happening, of course. But really, let's soak in the 360-degree view before we craft our opinions. Because what ultimately is the goal is relationships. We are social creatures. We need each other. Society depends on each other. Business depends on each other. Relationships matter. And, positive relationships matter. And I really truly believe that people don't get up in the morning and come to work to fail. And I'm so thankful that somebody taught me that in my early 20s. And it made me accountable as a manager. And yet relationships aren't easy. And so my point is that even though people don't come to work to fail, it doesn't mean that they won't feel like a failure or be in a failing position. And so relationship management is about being proactive. It's about getting ahead of what's happening and really keeping people and relationships in a state of positiveness, even while dealing with adversity and problems. One of the things I love most about the cyberspace, and I just love, getting to interact with my own cyber team and my chief security officer and his team, is how calm, cool, and collected they are. And, I was told to be this person of calm, cool, collected in business as a salesperson. And boy, have they mastered it more than I certainly, most people wouldn't think of me as calm, cool, and collected. But in a crisis, I am, for sure. I'm pretty hyper other than that. But these folks are always calm, cool, and collected. Crisis, no crisis. So understand that the best of the best cyber professionals really, truly are out there owning relationships, helping people understand what's going on, especially considering how new this business is and how complex it is. Think about all the people that don't understand cyber that work in the same company next to cybersecurity professionals. There's a lot of that. And so we must come with emotional intelligence skills, and we must continue to improve them. So here's my tree of emotional intelligence skills. You'd find this in all my offices across the country, and certainly in people's home offices. It's important to me that people never forget that these skills grow, which is why I stuck it on a tree. I'm not a graphics person. However, I think we get the point. These words on this screen are skills. Some of them we probably thought of when we thought of, soft skills, and some of them we've probably never even seen before, like love. I remember the first time myself and one of the co-founders at Rapid 7 put on the board in terms of what we want our culture to be about love. There was a few people who was like, oh no, how do you do that? Love isn't sex. Love is not having an affectionate relationship. Love is caring for another human. Love actually creates equality. Love says you understand that all humans want the same things in life. We all want to feel respect. We all want to make equal pay. We all want to grow and develop and keep our brains challenged. We all want to work in positive environments. We all want to know what's expected of us and have transparency about what people think our job results are. And so, that's love. And what else is love is the willingness to confront. I remember when I first learned this growing up in Southern California, and certainly being told not to confront, not to speak out. It took me a while through my training to understand that confrontation actually is love. Meaning, if I'm willing to confront, if I'm willing to engage, then I'm in the conversation. And the only way a problem can be solved is to be in the conversation. And so it's when we retract or we retreat or we stop talking that we're actually not being loving and caring. And so, the willingness to confront doesn't mean negative, yelling, shouting. No, it means staying in the conversation, staying calm, cool, collected, working through it, seeking to see somebody else's opinion and understanding and engage that. That's, love, in the disguise of willingness to confront others, willingness to share things that you may feel uncomfortable because we're not used to sharing what we're thinking, feeling, and perceiving. And yet the reality is, if we don't share what we're thinking, feeling, and perceiving, then we won't have strong relationships. We won't solve problems. We won't grow. And so really learning how to do that calm, cool, and collected is the way to go. We certainly don't have time to go into all of these skill sets. So I can tell you that the one, right in the middle, making and managing measurable agreements, is one of the skills that I find most important beyond love, because I see the most breakdown in organizations, including my own. Anytime something goes wrong, I've been able to pinpoint over the years that it's because there was no measurable agreement. And in some cases, if there was a measurable agreement, that measurable agreement needed to change based on progress of a project, and it was never altered. And so at the end of the day, regardless of which one of those it is, it comes down to, then, if nothing's measurable and agreements aren't made, then it comes down to politics and finger pointing and who's got more power. And so we really want to eliminate those possibilities. And I can't stress enough how making measurable agreements and managing them such that they need to change so that they're documented and in writing is super important to avoiding conflict. That I'm a big fan of avoiding as much conflict as possible, hence win-win communication. I train on this a lot, which is the idea of don't have a conversation, certainly in business, but this applies to life, without understanding where the other person's win is and how and can you help them get their win. While it may seem complex, it's actually not. And I have some videos on YouTube on all of these skills. I encourage you to take a look at them. Lean language is critical. There isn't anything up here that isn't critical. And now an expectation certainly of a leader, an executive, a manager, and certainly as a human, it's become, thankfully, an expectation. And so I'm super excited to continue to support all of us and in this discussion. And it's an honor to be here with you all today. Please do link in with me, connect with me. If there's anything I can do for you, I'm here for you. Oh, thank you so much.
Hi, we have one question from the audience that they'd like to ask. And it says, I agree there's no reason to work for an employee who doesn't respect you. But how do you know whether they will or won't before signing on? It's hard to weigh finding a positive environment against the risk of looking like a job hopper.
I know. What a great question. It truly is. Interviewing an organization while they're interviewing you is definitely a skill. And I would say you got to go with your gut. Who the person that you're working for directly is the most important person to feel respect from. That being said, if there's anything in your gut from the experience of the job interview that says to you it's a possibility, then it's a possibility. It ought not be that you feel it in your gut. And once you're in an organization and you're dealing with a lack of respect, I also encourage to see if you can work through it, not by, dealing with it, more from communicating about it and seeing how they react. I mean, luckily we have laws. People can't just get fired for bringing up this conversation. And if it does happen, there's certainly ways to help somebody after that. Not that we want to see that, but it is difficult. And job hopping on a resume is a problem, if you will. And so I get it. I say, go with your gut, pay attention to your gut. If you feel anything, I tell people this all the time, even if it's 5%, there's something, there.
Thank you.
Yes. How did we do on time?
We did great.
Yay!
Thank you so much, Deidre. We really, really appreciate you dropping all those diamonds on us today. We couldn't have done it without you. You've just inspired us all to feel like we can change the landscape and we can be empowered to make a difference in the cybersecurity space. So thank you so, so much.
Right.
I'm going to now pass it over to one of my fellow leaders in ICMCP, Hakeem Oseni.
Hi, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from. Thank you so much for joining. What a year. Really happy to be here, and I'm so excited to present the panel on entrepreneurial efforts in information security. So we have two guests today, Carmen Parada and O'Shea Bowens. I'm just gonna read you, their bios are both very accomplished. So Dr. Carmen Parada is the founder and the managing partner at 1CSR Inc. She started her career programming in COBOL, Fortran, and Pascal. She moved from her native land of Acapulco, Mexico, to Sunnyvale to work for Sun Microsystems as a Unix systems admin before, and she was also one of the first Latinas women in tech in Silicon Valley. Nowadays, Carmen's assists multiple organizations such as the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California, San Mateo County as a virtual chief information security officer, and she also advises the Cybersecurity and Privacy Advisory Committee for the NIST and Department of Homeland Security-led Smart Secure Cities and Communities Challenge. Welcome, Carmen.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Next is O'Shea Bowens. O'Shea also has a long list of accomplishments. O'Shea is a cybersecurity enthusiast with 11 years of technical security experience. He is the founder and the CEO of Null Hat Security, which focuses on the areas of security analytics, threat hunting, cyber threat intelligence, security program operations, and cloud security. Null Hat Security also addresses workforce issues with skills and gap assessments via cybersecurity training. O'Shea is also the founder of Intrusion Diversity System, a bi-monthly hosted cybersecurity podcast. He is also the founder of SkiCon Conference, advisor to the SANS Blue Team Summit, and advisor to Layer 8 Conference. He also serves as a board member of the ISSA New England and Blacks in Cyber.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here, O'Shea, and thank you for being here, Carmen. So, our panel discussion is entrepreneurial efforts in InfoSec. I know I've been probably a corporate drone for most of my life, but just reading through your experience, it seems you were in that corporate world. How did you decide to leave that corporate world and start your own business? Like, when did you decide to flip that script, and how did you manage that financial responsibility? We're going to start off with Carmen, and then we'll go to O'Shea.
Absolutely. Well, I gotta say that it is not an easy decision. So you have to trust in yourself. So I know that we're the most critical of ourselves, but at that point of time, when you decide to make a step, you need to trust mainly in yourself and allow yourself to do things without criticizing every single step of the way. Because sometimes we tend to prepare and have everything perfect. Some of us, we create our own roadmap. Some of us, we just want to just take the risk. But whatever the case might be, don't be so critical. Allow yourself to fail, because the sooner than you fail, you know that what you're doing wrong. So it was a very hard decision for me, especially because at that time when I decided to move from corporate to build my own business, I was 2 years into a single mom of 3 kids. So for me, it was, I have to do this, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but I want to achieve this goal. So you have to understand what you want to do, what you want to do in the short term, and then grow from there. Because my idea was like, I'm not just gonna leave the corporate world to start my own business. I just want to make sure I want to do what I want to do, because in the corporate sometimes we find ourselves a little bit stuck because you want to do more. You are that person that you want to deliver and help a little bit further aside to your job description. So when you find the barriers in the corporate world, because everything is so aligned with the organizational rules, you find yourself, how can I move a little bit, not only on the financial side, looking for a financial increase, but mostly looking for a more skill set, a more oriented goal. Like, I want to do this with my career. My company right now, it's because of my job description, because of the politics, the organization politics, or whatever the case might be, or the opportunity is not there at the time, then you are actually ambition to move up. You find yourself stuck, and you find yourself like doubting yourself. But deep inside you, you need to understand what you want to do and pursue it. One of the things I'm more afraid of is um, to kill my potential. Things that I feel like, if I feel like I'm stuck and my potential is not what I want it to be, I'm that kind of person that I'm gonna find it outside when I'm at. So if you're that kind of person, you need to first understand what you want to do, and then start searching. And then for me, it was very, very critical, because I was the single provider in my home with 3 kids, but I knew what I wanted, and I knew it would be difficult. So, and I took the risk. And I gotta say that one of the most important things to me is just to face with the most critical challenges. When the critical challenges came to me, that's when I think I was more creative, I was more brave, I was more strong. So you need to allow yourself to get in that position where you have to find a way to get out. So that was for me like the way that I could make it happen for myself.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And O'Shea?
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for having me. It was. I'll break it down into like the decision making into. I say buckets a lot, so you'll likely hear me say this. It's just like the way my mind works. So like it's like 3 different buckets. But one was really having a vision for my career, which was a big factor into me kind of like wanting to not only kind of like trust myself and bet on myself, but it was really this question of, okay, I know what areas of security I really enjoy. So it was finding a way to essentially focus on those areas, right? Like I'm a more of a, I guess you would say hands-on keyboard type of person, right? Like I've been in security since, I guess, unprofessionally since I was like 13, 14, I kind of got introduced to like the hacking world. So I spent a huge portion of like my teenage years I probably should have been socializing, but I was at home on a computer. So, you know, which I really enjoy. Like I really enjoy discovering networking, understanding how like the actual network works, like understanding how the internet works. So it was really this question of, okay, well, how do I move myself into a position where my career and my focus consists of the areas that I really, really enjoy, like those deep technical areas and solving problems. And the more really I ask myself what this looks like, and the more, you know, I'm 37, so I've been at this for a while, but the more jobs I would look at the job descriptions or review the job descriptions for, and it's like, okay, maybe I can do, you know, a bit of like, you know, threat hunting here, but I can't really do any malware analysis, or I can't really do any architectural work, or I can't really do any deep analysis work. So it was one of these questions of, you know, if I'm going to stick to what I truly love and keep growing in the areas that I love, and, you know, analyzing and researching new threats, it became fairly clear to me that I was likely going to have to like branch out on my own to really kind of follow my passion. The second bucket was really taking a look at, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't have a lot of friends that are like CEOs. So one of the cruxes you come to is, you know, how do I, you know, really how do I begin to build out a business, but also how can I ensure that I can, you know, support myself. You know, when I started No Hat, you know, I was by myself. I was married, but I didn't have a child yet. But when I had a child, when I had my daughter, it was kind of rubber meets road moment of, okay, you started this company to focus on these areas and also to develop, you know, a product for security training. You know, how do you ensure that you can find clients? You know, how do you really network? You know, there is no, you know, Google Doc on, hey, here are the steps that you can take to start your business and which ensures success, right? Like that doesn't, if it exists, I'd love to see it, but that doesn't, to my knowledge, that doesn't really exist. So you really have to take a core look at your network and begin to identify, you know, what people can you begin to take advice or from, or that may be able to introduce you to potential clients. It's funny you had Deidre on. I've known Deidre for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. She's been like a great mentor to me. So she actually introduced me to one of my first clients. So it's just strangely ironic that she was like she was a keynote speaker. But having like awesome people in your network that this is like the key part of this, having awesome people in your network that you actually trust. You know, you find out, you know, who truly supports you and who doesn't, like fairly fast when you branch out of your own, because you're exhausting your network, not in this, you know, negative way of like, you know, introduce me to so and so. It's really like, hey, do you think you can facilitate an introduction? And you know, sometimes the answer to that question isn't always yes. You know, sometimes it's I don't feel comfortable with that, or it's a flat out no. So you really start to like analyze, okay, who has your back, really? I mean, honest, like to be blunt about it, like who has your back and who can you kind of like grow with? And I think that's one of the really, you know, important questions to ask yourself before you make that dive, because there's not, you know, newsflash, there's not always going to be a customer, right? You know, you have to think about what do you do in that time where you don't actually have a customer, right? How are you growing yourself? Like the times that I'm not with a customer, I'm either focused on like speaking engagement, or I'm focused on my research, or you know, a new threat in the security world that that I think is of interest. You know, like I've been doing a lot of research like Maze ransomware, because I just think it's like a fascinating piece of ransomware. So finding areas, really thinking about this, like finding areas of concentration for yourself that you're going to grow the business into, but also allotting time between engagements where you're constantly growing. I think you have to honestly be like a self-starter in order to like run your business, because there's no one kind of holding your hand like, hey, by the way, this new breach happened. You may want to like look into what that malware is, or what those binaries look like, or what threat actors those are. Like these are things you have to really kind of like dive into on your own. And I'm like super thankful that, you know, when I was really young, I got introduced to, I guess, the world of security and the world of hacking, because that's been my motor ever since then.
Fantastic. Thank you. And I can't, I'm going to echo that. I remember the first time I met Deirdre at a B-Sides down on 11th Street in San Francisco. Just was a bit nervous, and she just really made that whole experience very nice for me. And networking and ICMCPing and meeting people is very important. So let's pivot to the next question. 2020 has been a tough year with COVID. You can't meet people, you can't fly around the country and engage with people. How have you been able to pivot your entrepreneurial entities and your businesses this year? We'll go with Carmen and then O'Shea.
Yeah, for me, it's always be in touch with the people who, like OSHA say, who has your back, right? We are living in a very strange times where everybody thinks staying home is just staying home and not communicating with anyone, but it's kind of the opposite, because now you find yourself, you commute time, you can talk to people, you can engage on conversations like this with groups like this. So for me, it's been more an advantage because I save my commute time and I talk to people. I started my day very early, and that's only me. But I know I have people in the East Coast where I reach out to them at 7 a.m. in the morning when I know it's 9 a.m. over there, or sometimes even earlier. And I just keep in touch with them to see if they need something from me. I always offer my help first before I ask for help. So it has been great because people, it just remembers then, oh, I just remember then you do cybersecurity. How are you doing with the elections? What are you doing? And it's always a conversation that goes along the ways with always putting you in perspective of, you know, what are you doing next? How are you doing with this time? So for me, it's been a bless. It's been a bless because I've been closer. I'm trying to take advantage of the time. Now we have FaceTime. Now we have Zoom. Now we have Teams that we can leverage. So it's been great, and participating in conferences like this, it's also another good way to keep in touch to us and be in front of the people that you won't forget who you are. You don't need to sell anything. You just need to offer your help for whatever you can offer to them. And that's the way it's been working for me. And it's been great. And I offer the same thing to the forum right here. My expertise, my experience. I have more uh, like downtimes, lessons learned than have successes. But you know what? I feel like those lessons learned have been my success because it's just a way to don't do it again, right? To don't fall in the same mistake. And those are priceless for me. And those are the ones that are being the things I'm trying to avoid now because I felt the pain. So and those are the things that we share with the people that I reach out with, my friends, with my colleagues, with my my corporate employees. So it's been great. COVID haven't been a barrier whatsoever for me as a personal, professional, and business. So
Fantastic. And O'Shea?
Muted. I caught it before you said it. I saw you. I saw you were about to say it. Yeah, so I'll answer that. And there's kind of two different answers for this one. One, I am super cheap, and as a new startup, you don't have money for marketing. So unfortunately, COVID, came into existence. We can go into the conspiracy nuts thing of whether it was man-made or not, but the effect that it's had across continents is just astounding to me. Like, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this. So there is the unfortunate factor of health consequences and what's happening to a lot of people in bad situations. But from a business and cybersecurity perspective, and this goes back to the networking part, it's kind of been this, COVID's not good. I'm going to go ahead and say that before I see my next part. But it's been great for networking because there's been so many online events where you don't have to travel. One of the things that I'm fairly reliant upon to find potential clients has been a lot of the conferences that I've spoken at, traveling across the world and going to fairly large conferences and speaking and networking and meeting people off stage that essentially at times turns into potential clients without me having to go down the, in a few years I will, how it gets bigger, yeah, I have a budget for marketing. But until then, it's really this kind of self-made, on your grind type of marketing. So there's been so many more events that allowed me to connect with a lot more people because the travel factor has been eliminated due to COVID. So there's been a lot more online conferences throughout 2020. I think I've spoken, more times in the last 6 months than I have over like the last 2 years. So that's allowed me to interface with loads of people and network with individuals that some of that has turned into business, right? So it's allowed you to kind of take this other shift or another step in regards to how you grow out your book or how you grow out potential clients. The second part of that in regards to answering has really been this. It's been a weird time for security in COVID also, right? Like since COVID has, begun spreading and spreading and spreading, you've seen attackers take advantage of this, targeting at-home remote workers. Loads of new realistically phishing campaigns that have targeted places like the World Health Organization, right? So you've seen this kind of uptick in how attackers actually respond to COVID, to a pandemic, and this has put security on the radar over this year, right? Like I've heard security mentioned in the news more this year than I ever have like in my life, right? Even more than when the Snowden leaks happened, even more than that, right? Like there's just more. It seems to be every week or two there's something weird that happens in the world related to COVID and targeting remote workers. It's not as if attackers are really looking. I mean, it's not as if they've given up on some of the more sophisticated type of attack to gain entry, exfil data, and in that realm that's still happening. But what you're seeing is really this shift of just target the user, just overload the user with phishing attempts, try to get them on rogue devices. A lot of people are traveling. I mean, not traveling, so they're at home. So there's just been this massive explosion attacks on individuals versus the entity, right? A lot of individuals being targeted. So what this has done is put, again, security at the forefront of a lot of business owners, CEOs, board members. It's put security at the forefront of their mind. So during this period, unfortunately, it's a horrible time, but it's been a weird time for security because it's so relevant right now. And it shows that, it doesn't really matter what's going on in the world. Attackers and threat actors have, they have to make their money too. So they are adjustable and flexible with how they actually target an entity to reach their goals. But also too, it's made us a bit more self-aware or conscientious of the fact that not being in an office doesn't automatically offer you that security blanket, right? Like that's gone. So now you need to think about what you're doing at home.
Wow. Well, thank you. We are at time. I would encourage all of our attendees to reach out to O'Shea and or Carmen. I have put their company links in the chat. I am going to pass the mic. Well, first of all, I want to thank you, O'Shea, and I want to thank you, Carmen. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being part of ICMCP. I'm going to pass the mic over to my colleague, Olivia Hereford.
Thanks for having me.
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I am just really excited to moderate this panel of powerful, accomplished women in information security. And they're gonna drop some wisdom on us about how, well, the way I like to say, how they got over. And so in the sense, with a sense of time here, I'm gonna give some very brief introductions to our three panelists. But I encourage you to check out their LinkedIn profiles. I mean, this is an impressive group of professionals. And so I want to start with Dr. Carla Clark, who is the Director of Cybersecurity at Tandem Diabetes Care. And before her current role, Carla spent 8 years at KPMG and Accenture as a security and risk consultant. And Carla's PhD and master's degrees concentrated on information security. Barbara Kay, CISSP, is Senior Director of Product Marketing for Risk and Security at ServiceNow. She expanded her product marketing career into security and privacy marketing while at Sun Microsystems 15 years ago. Barbara leveraged a bachelor's degree in history and English to begin her career in marketing, which brought her to where she is today. Tiffany Luckhart is head of security and IT at ShopMonkey. She has a master's degree in Homeland Security with an emphasis on information security and forensics, and has spent the last 8 years working for Bay Area SaaS companies. So let's get started. I have a couple of questions. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to share their answers to these questions, and hopefully we can get through these. I wish we had so much more time to talk about this, but we'll do our best to stay within our time frame here. So let's start, and I'll do the same thing as the intros. We'll start in alphabetical order. So we'll start with Carla. The first question is, as a woman in InfoSec, what was the most challenging obstacle you had to overcome? And what was your approach to facing and turning that challenge into success? Carla?
All right. I guess for me, the most challenging obstacle was definitely within myself. It was more self-doubt focused, more of me trying to feel as though I knew enough before I spoke. And that was partially also what led me into trying to achieve my PhD, just so I would get that sense or that feeling of, okay, I think I have enough information now. And even so, after getting it, I still had that feeling. I still felt like I didn't know enough. And how I've turned that into success is just flipping it, using it. I have a curious mind. I ask a lot of questions and clarification. I take the approach of, seeking first to understand and then to be understood. And that's something that, has really helped me to move up as a leader, because people see that as curiosity and interest and wanting to go further. So that I have to say, I've become very good at convincing people to tell me what they think. And that's been extremely pivotal in my path forward.
And Barbara?
Oh, sorry. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak. In terms of obstacles to success, I was in product marketing for about 15 years-ish before I got into cybersecurity. And I think one of the things that I would want people to understand is that there's so much to learn, and it changes so fast, that is much less about what you learned 5 years ago or experienced 10 years ago or something, and much more about what is happening now. And so the obstacles to success is keeping up and staying open, and not getting trapped into your existing knowledge base. And I think some of the methods of achieving success, so I did a couple of things. One, like Carla with the PhD, I went ahead and got an accreditation, a certified information security systems professional accreditation. And so that meant that I had enough knowledge across multiple domains that I have more of a credibility than some of the people who are deeply knowledgeable about an individual or single domain, right? You may be really knowledgeable about privacy or really knowledgeable about network security, but get you out of that comfort zone and whoa, compliance, is not where you're willing to go, right? But having something that was broad and somewhat shallow, first of all, it matched my skills in the sense that I wasn't technically I wasn't too technically enamored of any one topic. I love the space, right? Kind of like what O'Shea was saying. It's just so fun. It's so dynamic. And that is an opportunity. So go out, learn, follow the threat reports, and more than anything else, learn the language so that when another thing comes, you have the context of that language and the context of the environment, because that's what matters. It's not about book learning. It's not about yesterday's understanding. It's about being able to contextualize and say, this is what matters to you. And especially as a marketing person, my job is to take technology stuff and turn it into ways to communicate technology. And so having that language and ability to translate is the skill that matters more than the individual, how the ransomware attack chain works, which you can learn that, but it's secondary to having the passion and knowing that you can, right? Just know that there's not someone else who's going to be better. It's not like there are 90 million people out there who are better at this. We need every hand on deck. You can do it.
Excellent. Kind of sounds a lot like what Deirdre was telling us. Tiffany?
Yeah, so I can totally relate with what Carla said as well. My challenge was definitely overcoming imposter syndrome. Prior to ShopMonkey, I worked at Malwarebytes, and it can be a very technical company with lots of very smart security researchers there. Unfortunately, I've learned that anytime I start anything new, I'm going to initially struggle with thoughts like it's too hard, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not technical enough, everything, right? So while I used to work even harder to prove to myself that I was good enough, it's a bit of a recipe for burnout. So instead, what I've learned to do is to kind of just push through that discomfort and find a way to carve my own unique space for myself. I find the thing that I'm good at in that context, and I just lean into it until I become the trusted resource for that thing. And that trust will pay dividends over time. Soon enough, people will, trust you with more projects or responsibility for more tooling or whatever it may be. And then one day you look up and realize that you're one of those smart, talented people at your company that they depend on.
Definitely, I think that's one of the things that a lot of women have to get over, is that turning imposter syndrome into confidence. All right, Carla, next question. From a positive perspective, what has been a bright spot that has turned out to be an X factor in your success?
Being a woman, honestly. No, I mean, when I started, I worked in industry and store systems engineering for a retailer. And at that time, they decided to revamp all the technology. And I was relatively new on the team, not really seen as the most technical or, one of the guys who knew everything. And they decided to move all the technology into the dressing room at this point. And there was a significant event where basically all the systems went down during a time of day where women are in the dressing room. So turns out the only person on the team who could enter the dressing room to resolve this issue was me. And it's funny because it was that was my moment of, oh my God, they need me. But it was broader than that. It made me realize women are needed in technology. And yes, that was very pointed. It was a very female situation where, the guys couldn't step into the dressing room with women changing. However, for me, that was the moment that opened up my mind to start to realize that there are going to be situations where I'm the one that can do it, or we're the ones that they need in order to get beyond this point, because sometimes there are skills we have that they just don't. So it's something that to this day I laugh at, but that's why I am where I am now, was because of that moment.
Great story. Barbara?
Wow. I'm not sure I can follow on to that one.
I'm sorry.
I think from a bright spot perspective, I think what I really like about being female in cybersecurity technology versus just technology is cybersecurity. It's a bunch of cynics and skeptics, right? You know, pragmatists, right? Deidre, I think, mentioned that these people are very level-headed, and that is something that is really I enjoy that, right? Because it's not about trying to go too far or you know, be too, you know, fluffy, brandy kind of stuff in terms of marketing. It's about just being real and finding what matters and talking that through. And so for me, I don't know if that's because I'm female or not, but it's something that I really like about cybersecurity, and it has helped me to feel accepted and to be able to contribute, because I happen to be a very practical person, right? You know, stuff I write tends to have practical, pragmatic, essential, you know, those kinds of things in the terms. So that's a bright spot. And I'd say the other thing is that because cybersecurity has come on so strong so recently, there are some domains, including privacy, where there's a ton of female camaraderie. Like if you look around at chief privacy officers, the likelihood of it being a female is much higher than other roles. And so 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was involved with a group, the Executive Women's Forum, and it was about women in security, trying to be nice to each other. And privacy was an especially rampant area where people weren't taking it seriously, and therefore women could succeed and dominate and lead. And that's just super encouraging. And I think that that's true across the board, that there are places where we have a chance to show what we can do and make an impact because it's less proven and structured than in the past. I might put the same thing out there for DevOps, for example, or some of the other cloud computing areas where it's not defined. So you come out, you be yourself, and you make things happen.
Thank you. Thank you. Tiffany.
Yeah, so we hear a lot about finding mentors, but in my case, I was fortunate enough to find a champion. And to kind of talk about the differences there, a champion doesn't just simply offer advice on a career path, they actually help to create opportunities and advocate for you. So in my case, I can count at least 3 separate occasions where the person who championed me significantly affected my career trajectory. And unlike a mentorship relationship, which can largely be one-way benefit to the mentee, a champion-protege relationship is reciprocal. So a champion pushes that protege to the next level, gives them space to take risk. And in return, the protege makes sure that that champion's project is executed successfully and sets the groundwork for a strong legacy. So I'm incredibly proud of what I've achieved in my career. And I'm also deeply appreciative to the role that this person helped play.
Duly noted. That's really good information. Some of the things that Hakeem and I are working on are looking at how we connect our proteges and our programs with the right kind of person, a mentor. And I like that. If we can find a mentor and an advocate in one person, that would be great.
It can be a bit of a challenge, but it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That is the bright spot. All right, for our last question, and I think Deidre shared some data that really supports this comment that I have here, that the biases that women and other underrepresented groups encounter in tech have been around for a long time. And it's going to be a while before that changes. So with what, given that this isn't going to go away soon, and we're going to continue to run into these obstacles, what final nugget of advice do you offer to a woman with a vision of success in cybersecurity? Carla?
All right. So for that one, this one's big for me in terms of your success is only limited by your desires. And For me, what that means is if I feel like I'm stuck, I pause and I think, am I not wanting enough? Is there more I could desire at this point in order to move me forward? Because your success is, created by those barriers that you create in your head. So if you focus on the barriers, that's all you will see. There will be barriers. You will hit those barriers. They will get in the way. But if you focus on, here are the things I want to achieve, here's where I'm trying to go, this is where I'm trying to get, you will start trampling over those barriers and anyone or anything that gets in your way, because you're so focused on success that nothing else is important. So for me, I'd say that's what I want us to keep doing is set extremely audacious goals, keep fighting for what we want. And even if they say it's not available, then make it available.
Thank you. And Barbara?
So I would say that a key challenge we have is prioritizing. And it's possible that being female, you tend to be more nurturing and enabling, and more likely to want to multitask. Whereas a lot of folks I know are like single threaded, right? Do not interrupt me while I'm thinking about this thing because I will lose my thread for half an hour, right? And so a key challenge is to train yourself early to prioritize, because cybersecurity has so much going on that there will never be a chance to really relax and focus and dig into one thing, depending on your job, I suppose. But generally, cybersecurity is a very rapidly moving horizon. And so there's a lot going on. So you have to pick the things that matter to you, matter to your company, matter to your goals, and try to consciously have a muscle, have a structure, and commit to sustaining that, so that you can build the milestones and execute and feel good about it. And one little piece of advice I would suggest is when you're doubting yourself or concerned or confused or like, oh my God, what can I do here? Reach out to someone that you trust that's a little bit outside of your head and say, what are you perceiving about this? Or what would you do, right? And they can have other context to help you make a better and more informed decision, and also validate how you're feeling, and B, validate that you're doing good work, right? And sometimes as you've said before, the doubt is your worst enemy. So plan, get support, and be rigorous about it. And the earlier you build that muscle, the more successful you'll be in your entire career.
Thank you, Barbara. Right on. Tiffany?
Yeah, you've heard it already, and I'll just keep reiterating it. Build relationships with people. Build relationships within your company, within your school, whatever it may be. Build relationships within your network. Those connections are vital to you and to your career path. Within your company, something as simple as joining someone new for lunch. Nowadays it's a little bit more complex, I guess, because you're doing that remotely. But we're all in it together, so everyone can kind of take that time as they need to. If people know you on a personal level and they know you as a human being, they're far more willing to help you, to teach you, and to trust you when you come to them with some sort of request or problem, whatever it may be. And as for your professional network, it's critical. When I was looking for a new position earlier this fall, I was able to ask my peers about a given company before I even ever applied, to understand the culture, to understand if it's somewhere that I felt that I would be successful, to know people who worked there and whether or not they enjoyed it or they were considering leaving as well. It saved everybody, a lot of time. And then even better, I was able to skip over a lot of recruiting steps, because I could use those same network connections to get a direct introduction to the hiring manager. And who doesn't want to hire someone that's been referred by someone they know and trust? So leverage that professional network, build those relationships, within and without, and it'll provide a lot of opportunities.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'm so, those are the questions, and I'm just so pleased we do have a few minutes for some Q&A, which is great. I see one here in the chat. It says 2 questions for Tiffany. How did you find the champion? Oh, Chat box moved. How did you find the champion who helped your career trajectory? And any advice on how to approach professionals for such a role?
So in my case, it was a little bit of luck. It was one of those network relationship building conversations within a company when I was still in a somewhat entry level position, and happened to be getting drinks with somebody I didn't normally, and started a conversation around networking, and it ultimately led to that person bringing me into their team, and through hard work and open communication around what my desires were, my career aspirations, that person was able to also help continue open doors for me in the future. So those relationships that you build are vital to finding those people, and to also establishing a level of trust where they will be willing to kind of put their neck out to help you as well.
Here's an interesting one, and I think it probably speaks to a comment that Barbara made about kind of the personalities of people in this work, and I think Deirdre brought it out too. But this question is, how do you help avoid the natural tendency of security risk management from being pulled further into fight, flight, survival mode? And that's for any of you.
I'll add a little on this one for me, and it's funny because yeah, it's normal. I feel like everything is urgent and important to our leadership most of the time. So it's important to step back and assess the situation. If I show panic and fear, my team and everyone will be panicked and in fear. So no matter what's going on, I typically just step back, and a quote I always say is, and this is bad, but is this life altering? At the end of the day, are we in a position to still go home tonight? So if that's the case, then calm down, we'll figure it out. And that usually makes people step back and realize, hey, I'm at work. This is just a moment of time. I just need to work through this problem, which we always do. So jumping into the scenario of the crazy anxiety that's going on, it doesn't help. It doesn't help to move anything forward. So I typically try to calm everyone down and just step back and say, okay, how are we going to do this together? And can you go home tonight and sleep? That's typically the ask.
So much of this is life skills. Any other comments or reactions to that question?
Tiffany?
Go for it, Barbara.
I was just thinking that fight or flight mode, that applies to a lot of different aspects of life in high tech, right? And there's always something, right? And it's, the panic of a reorg or a budget or a launch or, just stuff happening, right? And so knowing that this too shall pass, right? Getting to the other side, what will I think in 3 months, right? Take a deep breath and try not to panic. That's super important and super true, right? People who say, do you want your tombstone to say, I wish I had another day to work, right? So trying to remember that the balance is vital, and that longer term perspective is what matters. I think it's a skill, but you have to consciously do it. Otherwise you will be consumed by the stress. You will be consumed. That's just the way it is in high tech.
Well, I want to thank all of you for your time and participating in our summit. This is absolutely so impressive to me. I wish we had a lot more time, but now is our break time. I want to give everybody a chance to take a break, but I'm going to hand it off to MK, who has a little poll we want to do during the break.
So thanks, Olivia. Great content up to this point. I hope everyone agrees. The panelists, the comments, the leadership gems, I think we've gotten off to a fantastic start. We want to give everyone about 3 minutes or so to pull away. I know we all multitask during virtual conferences and things like this, but to pull away, get a couple of things done, and then really to tee yourself up for our in-note comments that we have. Fantastic speaker coming up. So 3 minutes. But in the meantime, for those of you that want to stay engaged and on screen here, a little bit of lighthearted comments. We want to get a sense as to where everyone is mentally in terms of what's transpired over the intervening year, 2020. Just asking what folks are looking forward to the most in 2021. Assuming, of course, that there is, a viable vaccine and therapeutics available to the vast majority of the population, and that, hopefully in the what for most people is the second quarter, we return to some sense of normalcy in 2021. But really looking forward to seeing what next year brings. So, yeah, I mean, you're free to break right now. I got the clock ticking on the break. We're just under 2 minutes, and then I'm going to do an introduction for our in-note speaker, and really pull this thing into the barn and wrap it up. Interesting comments here. Most people are looking for travel, getting back to travel for pleasure, which I too agree. Restaurants, that's probably number 2 for me as well. Awesome. Travel for work, not doing too bad. About 30% of you guys, or at least 9 out of the 31. Interesting. Okay, I'm going to end that poll, share the results with you so you can see what's going on. Most folks are looking forward to getting back to travel for pleasure. I'm sure if you're like me and my family, you canceled a number of vacation events and things like that during the course of the year. And I agree, let's get back to that so we can unplug from work. Okay, we got about 10 seconds or so left on the break. Just want to remind everyone before we go into this final session here to reach out to us, connect with us on social media, spread the word, amplify the messages you see, and also look to these particular pages for content and upcoming information about events as they develop and transpire. And we put the links to those various pages in the chat earlier. So if you scroll up the chat, you should be able to get those. I'll stick them in the final comments as well as we get towards the end. So let me take a moment to key up our final speaker here.
Before you do that, MK,
yeah.
There's a question on the SANS Mentor Protege Program.
Yes.
And so it looks like someone's wanting to know if this is just available for the Bay Area chapter. Can we just call that out for everyone?
Sure. So many of you may or may not know one of the programs that the ICMCP is launching is, of course, the mentorship program. There will be opportunities from our chapter members as well as the national organization to identify mentorship opportunities, both acting as mentor and mentee within ICMCP. We're in the process of formalizing that process, and you will hear more about that in the coming months from ICMCP, the national, and also those of us here at the chapter level. Hopefully that answers that question. If you have something specific that you want to dig into, feel free to reach out to me directly or any of the other members of the chapter leadership.
Perfect. I think that was great. I think it was just wanted to hit on that before we move forward.
Okay, fantastic. All right, our final speaker, or at least keynote for the day, and then we're going to have some closing comments from Hakeem and Olivia. Again, great content up to this point. Appreciate everyone's willingness to dial into this. I had the opportunity to meet our next speaker virtually a couple of weeks ago. He and I found one another, networking, of course, on LinkedIn. We had a great conversation. He told me about his efforts that he was engaged in and had launched a startup down in Texas called 3Data. But Waylon Waliusai is an entrepreneur. And if you notice from the themes that we've been trying to emphasize during the course of this particular webinar, it's about sometimes you got to do it yourself. And getting through and past those barriers that exist for you, like the obstacles of fear, like the obstacles of not knowing whether or not you're going to be able to launch something. So our meeting was fortuitous. I asked him to participate in this particular webinar as the final speaker, and I'm looking forward to the message that he's going to deliver. Waylon, the deck is yours.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, MK, for again giving me the opportunity to speak here. And can you guys hear me? Am I coming through here?
Yes, you are.
Awesome. Well, I guess first and foremost, thank you so much for allowing me to come and speak as become the final keynote here. I'm going to just talk about my experience mostly getting into cybersecurity. I had a very unorthodox kind of journey to get to not only technology but cybersecurity specifically. But I think it's an interesting enough journey to be able to share. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Just make sure everyone can see it. Can everybody see my screen here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's loading up.
Perfect.
You're good.
So I guess just to give you a little bit of a background on myself. My name's Waylon Waliusai. I'm the co-founder and CEO of 3Data. Previously, I worked with Nike as a big data analyst. I worked very closely with Microsoft on their Azure database design architecture. And I also consult with the DoD very frequently with US Army here in Austin, Texas, as well as JSOC. My company, 3Data, has been around for about 5 years. I've been an entrepreneur for about 6. And I've had a very interesting journey into the space. And it's been a very much a learning process for the past half decade here. But exciting because I think if I can find like-minded people like you guys have cultivated here, this is how we can find other individuals who can enter the space and find success. So a little bit about my company. What we did is we built a data fusion platform. We used machine learning to correlate logs, alerts, any sort of big data in a real-time collaboration space. And what it looked like was something like this. So you could enter a virtual reality environment or an augmented reality environment to see all of your information in real time. But the journey to get there was very hard, learning how to fundraise, learning how to build business. I'm a self-taught, hacker programmer. So a lot of this was me trying to take this on my own shoulders and really find a way to make this happen. Especially from where I came from, it's not very common. But we've had very, recent success. We were able to close about $1.3 million in seed financing from Mark Cuban, who led the round. We just closed another $1.2 million round and are building out this new 3D command center market that Yahoo Finance covered us for. So it's a really awesome time to be, kind of in this virtual collaboration and big data space. But I think more importantly, the journey to get here is something that I think is worth noting, and hopefully we can find a way to emulate the opportunities that really have come my way from cybersecurity and technology. Really looking at the kind of way that you approach this, I think it's a mentality thing, right? And I always kind of quote Henry Ford, who said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. And for me, it was something that changed the way I kind of looked at not only technology, but business. I was very self-critical of, my lack of understanding early on coming into the industry. I got a business degree. I didn't have a background in programming or network security or even infrastructure. So I really had to understand that this is something that I can either completely believe in myself to be able to do, or really look at this as something that I can't do, right? But that's a decision that you really have to embody and come to terms with. And talking about where I came from, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin originally. Milwaukee was rated the worst city for an African American to grow up in. It is a very segregated city. There's high incarceration rates and crime rates. So there was really no kind of connection to technology whatsoever, other than my father, who was an engineer. So I always was looking at different ways to play video games on the computer or mess around and try to modify games through the command line. I was just very curious, and it was something that kind of got me away from all of the kind of pitfalls of living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Technology was something I was always interested in, but didn't seem like it was tangible for me. And then I started to, after kind of starting this company, I needed to really look into why is that? Why is it that more people who look like me and are from where I'm from don't, get the same opportunity with technology? And I started to really dive into, the data. I'm a very data-driven individual, and it really started to open up my eyes to the real problem. So in Milwaukee, 50% of African Americans are incarcerated by the age of 30. It really started to, open up a brand new kind of channel in my brain to start to look at why. Why is this? Why is it that there aren't alternatives to some of the pitfalls of trying to live in a city where it is a very harsh environment? So I started to really dig into the data a little bit deeper as far as kind of how I started my company and where. I started in my grandmother's garage after quitting my job, right? I just kind of self-isolated myself with my business partner in Milwaukee so that we couldn't get distracted from the real purpose and the real goal of building brand new technology. And I started to look at how do I finance this thing? And I started digging into the data, and 1% of African American CEOs receive venture capital. So I started to look at, okay, half of African Americans are incarcerated, 1% of African American CEOs receive venture capital. You do the math behind it, and it gives you this percentage, right? 0.0001. That is the percentage of someone like me being able to do what I'm doing now. And as soon as I got to this kind of realization, it became my purpose, of, okay, there's a chance. You're telling me I have a chance. And that was really all I needed to know, that there was a chance that I could do this. It's a very small chance, literally, 30% chance, but hey, there's a chance. Why not go for it? And I started to think about the other ways I look at it. And it's almost like, people get hit by lightning. There's a better chance that happens than me being able to do what I'm doing today. And it became my purpose, right? And proving that this is something that's possible. But it was a very powerful, sentiment to be able to really internalize this meaning, and hence the reason why I'm so excited to find the like-minded people to see if that was very similar in their experience. But really looking into my journey into cybersecurity, I came from corporate America and didn't really understand technology thoroughly, or network security, or any sort of any sort of specific industry cybersecurity models that I could apply to this. I came in as kind of a guy coming from corporate America who didn't like to clock in for other people, because I was doing sales, I was doing marketing for a large company in Milwaukee, and it never sat well with me. Not only was I the only pretty much African American in the front office, but I was making, my employers a ton of money. And it was something that, again, trying to figure out what's the alternative here? How do I get out of this kind of corporate hierarchy that I'm trying to climb? And there's only 1 to 2 other individuals in the entire organization who look like me. And I got a call from a friend of mine who said, hey, I just got this new VR headset. You should come try it. And I was thinking, what does that mean? I didn't have any access to the information to understand what that really meant. How do I start to think of entrepreneurship, virtual reality, cybersecurity, if I don't even have a contextual way of relating that to my experience whatsoever? And I started to really look into that as a key problem with technology and specifically not only socioeconomically, geographically. The Midwest is not known for its big startups. It's not known for the unicorns that come out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it was all seemed like a kind of a unrealistic and untangible goal for me to try to think of ways to relate this to something that I can familiarize myself with. But I went over to my friend's house and I saw this VR headset for the first time. And I didn't know what to expect. I kind of looked at it and said, oh, this is really interesting. So I put this on my head, and this is in 2015, and I'll be able to see things. And he said, yeah, try it out and let me know what you think. And as soon as I tried it, it's like something unlocked in my brain. It was a new medium that allowed me to look at computing from a human-centric perspective. I no longer had to be a savant with technology to understand how to use this. This is now a medium that I could use my hands, or I could use the controllers and just reach out and touch the graphics. And it unlocked my kind of curiosity unlike anything I've ever done in my life. So I, again, quit my job. I moved into a garage and started to try to build software. I taught myself how to program. I taught myself C++, and started to build out these applications with my co-founder. And no one really got it. Everyone thought I kind of lost it a little bit. And they were like, you quit your job in corporate America to go work in your garage. And I did. And that was the reality of it, right? But it was terrifying to take that jump. And I think that's something to note as well of cybersecurity, is people are scared to leave what they are comfortable with in order to have a better opportunity financially, professionally, et cetera. But it unlocked this brand new, kind of curiosity I had about computing and where this could go with no previous, experience in technology other than working with Nike and data. So immediately I started to look into how far can we push this? And it led me to cybersecurity, being able to visualize networks, endpoints, any sort of cloud infrastructure, threat vectors, any sort of big data that we can get access to. And it's been a journey of 4 years of now learning new information, because every day there's something new that happens in cybersecurity and data. And it was a kind of a rocket ship that propelled me into places I could have never even imagined without being able to have just that one experience of trying technology that I didn't know existed or didn't understand. And propelled me into this entrepreneurial journey. As far as just kind of the way I looked at it, I was like, how do I replicate this for other people? Because I know it's not me. I'm not any different than the other people in Milwaukee. It's got to be something that's something that we can emulate and replicate. And then I started to really think of how do we take this kind of experience and bottle this up into a way that's easy to look at from a pipeline and a systemic approach. And I knew a lot of very brilliant individuals who I thought were very capable, and started to see is this something I can hire people or hire my friends to do, or how is this possible? But you have all these professionals who are very talented, and then you have cybersecurity, and then you have the career that it can create. And I think people are so caught up in this middle node here of complexity. It's extremely complex. It's certifications, it's courses, it's school, it's years and years and years of experience in order to have that foundational knowledge of even one to two systems. So it's very, very intimidating for especially minorities who you don't really see in cybersecurity that often. To be able to make that leap and say, yeah, I'm going to go and get my certification so I can go and become a level 1 analyst somewhere. It's a problem of the mystification of cybersecurity and technology. Again, if you don't have that relativity to relate it to something that you've seen before or experienced before, how can we expect the pipeline to change? There's just a lack of information, distributed, and there's not really people that I can go and seek out when it comes to cybersecurity. And I'm very blessed to have these mentors that I've heard kind of be part of the discussion, who've been able to take me under their wing, teach me not only business but cybersecurity best practices, new technology. People like MK who was able to connect with me, and through one call, again, I'm connected with all you. It's people like that that I think are the kind of cornerstone of the opportunity to find new talent. But how do we break down this barrier of the fear of taking that leap with something that you can't really understand completely? Because it could lead to generational wealth if you do something like start your own cybersecurity company or start your own data fusion company. And it can't just be me. That was kind of what was cemented in my head. But it's the fear of not knowing. If I don't know what I'm going to sign up for, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be, and I don't know, how to best apply myself in this industry, I don't think we can have expectations that people are going to take that leap. I don't think it's fair for us to have those expectations, because we have to be able to have these role models to point to and say, look, it's possible. Hence the reason why I was so excited that MK allowed me to come onto this kind of platform and talk about my experience, because it's very real. And I know a lot of individuals who just have the fear of not understanding or feeling like they're not knowledgeable enough of the industry to be able to go into rooms and have conversations, or join a meetup, or join a conversation like this, because of the lack of information that's distributed. So I look again at kind of the image of what cybersecurity and hacking is, and it's typically a white person in a black hoodie in their basement with a bunch of monitors up, and Mr. Robot or Mark Zuckerberg is kind of this IT guy, and that's what most people think of technology. Not only cybersecurity, but technology in general. So we have to rethink the way that we're positioning the value proposition of joining this awesome community. Because as soon as I was able to connect with individuals like MK in the community, like people like Marcus Carey, like HD Moore, like Corey Thomas, it opened up, my understanding of people actually want to help. This community is very inclusive. And with COVID-19, there are more than enough opportunities for us to really start to cultivate that and extend the community to reach those people in a manner of opportunity to change their profession, right? Or make that leap into the industry that they've been very curious about. And it's just breaking this persona and this mental model of what cybersecurity technology is. And that's really where I think the problem is there's no relativity to be able to correlate that to. But then you start to rethink the way we reach talent, and it needs to be kind of a systemic approach from the industry as a whole. The way I got into cybersecurity was through virtual reality. It wasn't through me taking certifications. It wasn't through me taking applied skill, tests. It was through a technology as a medium. Not saying that this isn't extremely important to be able to get people certified and take these different skill tests, but it doesn't reach the individuals that are simply just curious sometimes. It sounds like it's too complex. It sounds like a lot of work. I don't know where this is going to take us. It's this fear of not knowing, right? But if we can start to think of different mediums to be able to reach these people, who are the people that we're trying to reach? Is it the extremely skilled IT and cybersecurity engineers, or is it the people who are just curious? Is it the people who are just interested to learn more? Because cybersecurity is evolving every day. And what drove me to, my opportunity was being one of the more curious individuals about, oh, how does this system work? Oh, why did this hack happen? Oh, how did they respond to that breach? Did it hit the news? I was curious about every kind of step of the way while I was learning from some of the most brilliant, cybersecurity engineers I've had the pleasure to speak with. And I think the more important, kind of focus to be able to find other individuals who potentially want to get into the industry is how do we focus on the curious ones? How do we really cultivate that opportunity of, oh, you're interested to learn more. It's not about the certifications or the skills. You're just interested to know more. Because then we can start to look at this number and say, even if we find, one individual who may be, the 0.001%, what that can do for them is absolutely change their life like it did for me. And it is something I'm so passionate about and so grateful for the opportunity to come and speak about my experience, because I know there's other individuals that just by either volunteering to mentor, volunteering to connect with people like myself, we can find these people and include them in this awesome community that's been so inclusive for me. So I'm so appreciative of this opportunity to, talk about my experience and kind of what I had to learn through the industry. And I kind of heard the term trial by fire, but it's the people who will take those trial by fires to lead the way for other individuals, right? And open doors for people who don't understand exactly where the door might be. And that's something that, again, I'll always be grateful for. But again, thank you so much for the time, MK, and thank you for letting me come and speak about kind of my experience. I'm so excited to be connected with like-minded individuals who are all, trying to push diversity and inclusion in industry that is growing, exponentially every day, every month, every year, especially with COVID expedited all this. And I'm just very grateful to again be in the conversation. So I'm again, MK, thank you, and excited to connect with everybody.
Where can folks find you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm Wallen Wallisai. On Twitter, I am just Wallen _. The company is 3data.io. If you have any sort of virtual SOC needs, data fusion needs, we have an excellent team of data engineers and data scientists and cybersecurity professionals. Would love to, again, connect in any way, shape, or form.
Inspirational, brother. We appreciate it. Hakeem.
Hello, everyone. Wow, what a fantastic journey. I can't say thank you, Waylon, for that. And thank you to all the panelists. So it's the end of the year. We want to, again, mention our partnership with SANS, which is really probably the best cybersecurity training company on the planet. We have the SANS Diversity Cyber Workforce Academy, California, which is a free SANS training program for all people who are residents in the state of California. The program is open to women of all races, all Hispanic, Latinx, Native American, Black, African American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander. It's geared towards people who are unemployed or underemployed or just looking to switch careers into cybersecurity. People in community colleges, people in four-year colleges. You just have to be a resident of California. I strongly encourage you to apply to the program if you haven't already. And please, I think as a nation, we need to pull more people into cybersecurity. So please spread the word to your networks. A lot of people have been are transitioning careers due to COVID. This is an opportunity to really help strengthen the United States cybersecurity posture, right? It has to happen between, it's gonna be a public and a private partnership, and this is where really the rubber meets the road. Please remember to reach out to us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our website, and follow us. please feel free to link up with us and have courageous conversations. So, 5 years ago when I got started in this, I had to leverage, I had some people like Deirdre who showed me the ropes and introduced me to people and other conferences and gave me great advice and introduced me to people who I probably wouldn't have had the courage to actually introduce myself to. So leverage this organization, ICMCP. There are also other organizations in the Bay Area that can really help you get to wherever you want to go. And last but not least, I want to encourage each and every one of you on this call today to punch above your weight. Go further than you think you can, right? So as somebody mentioned, we all have these blockers, right? And society puts these blockers, our brain has these blockers. You have to know that you only grow when you are outside your comfort zone. You need to get comfortable feeling uncomfortable. You need to feel comfortable feeling challenged. You need to feel comfortable struggling to figure something out. So make that commitment to yourself now so you hit 2021 with a ferociousness that is unseen. You hit 2021 ready to come out of this quarantine, this COVID thing, and you are ready to go. Okay, I'm gonna take off my cheerleading hat now, calm myself down. Thank you so much though to everyone who came to this call, Deirdre, Carla, Barbara, O'Shea, Tiffany, Waylon, Alyssa, and thank you to my fellow board members, Rolanda, Olivia, and MK. I'm gonna pass the mic to see if Olivia has anything else to add.
Apply. Even if this seems like this might be something that is over your head, as Hakeem says, apply. Because one of the things that we are also working on, we know this scholarship is only going to go to 25 of you, but we've got some great opportunities that we're working on for those of you that applied but may not get the scholarship. So do it, apply. Thank you.
I would say as a hiring manager, this is a really great SANS training program and something that is universally valid and valuable. So it's a huge mark of approval if you can get it.
Hey folks, thanks for joining this webinar and call. We look forward to seeing all of you virtually and otherwise in 2021, and we hope you have a safe and happy holiday season. Just be well, invest in yourself, and go ICMCP.
Yes.
Bye-bye, everyone.